Our band of brothers is gathered here with us today to pay tribute to their friend and Buffalo jazz legend, Phil DiRe. First of all, please welcome Phil's favorite go-to pianist who spent years touring the world with the Count Basie Band, our pianist, musical director, head of the music school department here at UB, ladies and gentlemen, George Caldwell. Another old friend of Phil's who has been a member of many of his groups, a premier jazz bass player. If you follow jazz, you'll immediately recognize some of these iconic names. Ahmad Jamal, Lee Konitz, Charlie Mingus, just to name a few. This guy has worked with all of them over the years. He's a great jazz bassist, good buddy of Phil's. Please welcome Sabu Adiola. On guitar, another legend who spent some years on the road touring and recording with one of the world's most successful groups, Spyro Gyra. He worked with Phil many times over the years, and we're excited that he's able to be with us here today. Please say hello to master guitarist Rick Strauss. Buffalo has had its share of iconic drummers of national fame, going back to legends like Mel Lewis, Frankie Dunlop, Louis Marino, and a guy by the name of Justin DiCiocio, who Phil grew up with and served alongside with at the U.S. White House in the John Philip Sousa President's Own Marine Band. Justin later went on to work with all of the great stars in jazz. He also worked the Emmy Awards, the Academy Awards in Hollywood, and became head of the jazz department at the Manhattan School of Music in New York City. Right now, Justin is in Europe and just celebrated his 82nd birthday, taking his place to carry on the baton, or the drumsticks, for the next generation is a great drummer. Phil recognized as a rising star a few years back, who is quickly becoming a Buffalo icon. Please welcome Preston Brown. Okay, here comes that special instrument Phil added to his Florida recording group for the new CD Legacy. It's always that one instrument that lights up the sound of any band, full of Latin rhythms. And we've got Buffalo's best, and always Phil's first choice. The man with the magic hands on conga, Wendell Rivera. What a rhythm section. Now, let's add some firepower to the sound of this group. You know, Buffalo through the years has always had some great world-class trumpet players, and today's crop of young trumpets is just outstanding. Phil loved working with this guy. Please welcome star trumpeter Tim Clark. To complete the bottom end of the brass section, you got to have that great sound of a trombone. Buffalo has been very lucky to have one of the best. He was on stage at LAX 4 Points in Los Angeles recording live with Don Menz's big band. Here's a guy who stood next to Phil DiRe countless times on stage. Today, Phil's favorite trombone is on this stage. Please welcome trombone soloist John Hasselbeck. And finally, the sound of the tenor sax is one that's heard on almost every jazz tune. It has been a key instrument in jazz for 100 years. Phil would be very happy to have this guy step into his shoes for this gig. He is truly one of the best and fits right into the feel of Phil's compositions. Here to pay tribute to Phil DiRe, ladies and gentlemen, Nelson Rivera. George, light 'em up. On behalf of all the guys in the band, all the musicians in the audience, plus friends and schoolmates we all grew up with, and of course the entire DiRe family from around the country who are all here today. We all come together today not to mourn, but to celebrate the life of a guy we all loved, Buffalo musical legend Philip Michael DiRe. The story of Phil's life in music is documented in the CD that you received today as a gift. Please give a listen and read the story. In recent years, Phil and Jerry became snowbirds and made their winter home in West Palm Beach, Florida. Phil formed two bands, one in the north and one in the south. His Buffalo band was voted the #1 jazz group in Buffalo, and the Southern band was famous in many Florida clubs. He finally completed some original compositions that he was composing and took his Florida band into the George Lilly studios and recorded 6 of his compositions. He brought a master back to Buffalo, but before he could release it, he became ill, and then in May of 2021, we lost him and he passed away. Jerry and I decided that after COVID is gone, we would make sure his music would live on for all of us to enjoy and to secure his memory. The Phil DiRe Legacy album is now released nationally through Apple, Spotify, Amazon, iTunes, and Pandora for worldwide distribution. For you, we hope the CD will become your special memento to keep in tribute to his memory. Here on stage is Phil's Buffalo Band to perform for you their version of the songs on the Legacy CD. Let's begin with cut 1. This is a warm, melodic melody that sticks in your brain and has become a standard with many Buffalo musicians. This is called Nighttime. Nighttime. Many times throughout his entire life, Phil went the extra mile to help a lot of young musicians get started. We have a surprise guest with us now who took a quick break from touring and just arrived this morning in Buffalo. When Phil left the President's own United States Marine Band at the White House, he came home to Buffalo to finish school here at the University of Buffalo. After he finished, he stayed on to teach and became a lifelong friend with one exceptionally talented student who played the alto sax. Together, they formed a band back in those days called the House Rockers. And that band quickly became the hottest band in all of Western New York. Ladies and gentlemen, from the world-famous group Spyro Gyra, here is co-founder, please welcome Jay Beckenstein.
Hi there, folks. When Phil came to me and said, hey, I got the government to pay you to play jazz, I said, DiRe, you're a genius. But I didn't realize what a genius he really was at the time. You know, Buffalo in the early 70s and late 60s was a really bad place for race relations. Things had hit a new low here. People weren't talking, and there were no bridges between communities. And Phil came up with this brilliant idea that there was still a bridge through music. And he put together this ensemble that was half black guys, half white guys. We played half in black neighborhoods, half in white neighborhoods. And he pitched this to the government, and it was absolute genius. And he deserves so much credit for it. There should be stories written about what he did with that. So that's all I really wanted to bring up, because that was a part that I shared, and I learned how to be a band leader watching him do that. Anyway, I'm just going to play a short little snippet. I met Phil at UB in a class run by Charlie Mingus, the great jazz bass player. He didn't really notice us much at the time. And Charlie wrote this wonderful elegy for another one of jazz, the greats of jazz, Lester Young, tenor player like Phil was. And this is called Goodbye Pork Pie Hat.
Jay Beckinsale. The next song is actually cut 2 on the Legacy CD. This is another unique composition you'll never get tired of hearing. Phil's vision was, when he wrote this, the sight of the sun bursting through the clouds after a rainstorm. This is appropriately titled, Here Come the Rainbows. I think we're going to see some rainbows tomorrow. The DiRe family loved Buffalo. and are a very close-knit family. Phil and his brother were both very successful in many different ways. Let's take just a few minutes now to invite up and welcome the head of the DiRe family, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Vince DiRe. Do it here.
Well, welcome everybody. When Dad told me about this here, he said, I want you to speak a little bit. It's okay. So I wrote all these notes about 6 times over. There's only one problem. I can't read my own handwriting. So I thought, that's all shit. Anyways, I could say, I was about my brother Phil. This is a little bit, when he was in 6th grade, he saw my cousin, Benny Shinta, play the saxophone. He fell in love with it. My mother brought him to sax. He started taking lessons at Jan's Tolas, played, practiced every night, drove my father crazy. So my father said, we're gonna build a room upstairs in the attic for her. At this time, we were Adams Street, so this was called our family room. So this would Phil went there to practice. By 1 year, he's playing songs. He used to open the windows in the attic and stare at the whole neighborhood. That's my grandson still playing. He was just fantastic. Then he went on to school. In high school, he excelled in the band. They won the New York State dance band contest. Fantastic. All this time, my father said, he's never going to make it. He's never going to make it. In fact, he wanted him to work for him, so my brother used to go to the office, and when my father was on the phone, he'd be in the back room practicing the saxophone. That's how he was. But then, after school, he went on to Fredonia with Red Menzel for 2 years. Then he went to different schools. Then went in the Army. In the Army, he came home one time, the summer we were out at the beach, and he met this girl, Geraldine. He took her out a couple times. All of a sudden, Sunday, comes over to the house. My mom is cooking the sauce. My father's drinking the scotch. And he says, I'm going to marry this girl. My father got up and he said, he's crazy. He's absolutely nuts. But that's how it started, right? And of course, the best thing in the world ever happened to him was Geraldine. Just Geraldine. He loved her. Then in the course of life, Phil was living in Las Vegas and all over places. We always kept in contact. We were very, very close. I mean, every day we talked to each other, saw each other, hugged each other. He'd come in the office, he'd be nice, big guy, rather than, he gives me a big hug and a kiss. I look forward to it. And he was just a fantastic, fantastic brother. Every night, when I go to bed, I say a few prayers, and I say, good night, brother Phil. I miss you so much. Thank you for all coming. I can say a lot more, but enough. Thank you again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ben. Back to Phil's compositions from the Legacy CD. Next, this is a wild, hip Latin dance you're going to love. It gives the guys in the band a chance to stretch out, have a little fun. It's called Best of Friends. Back in the beginning, I mentioned Phil's lifelong musical pal, great drummer Justin DiCiocio. They were truly a band of brothers, grew up together. Justin wrote and sent me a tribute message to Phil and asked me to read it to you here today. This is from Justin. Like the blues, which he so loved, Phil was complexity disguised as simplicity in all matters of life. Phil was creative, talented, inventive, original, emotional, honest, trustworthy, dedicated, thoughtful, and a really true original. Deep down, he was a man who loved his family. He adored Jerry, his daughters, Maria, Michelle, Dee, his grandchildren, great-grandchildren, his brother Vinny and family, hundreds of friends, and his Michael. So many memories, what a journey. It all began as students at Grover Cleveland High School back in 1955. At 15 years old, Jazz Lions, we were ready to tear into the Buffalo jazz community and make it our mark. Our Grover Cleveland High School dance band became an outstanding high school band that went on to become the New York State champion high school band. Then they were off to college. Then they came back together again as members of the President's own Marine Band. We became the official White House Quartet. And what memories of the performances for President Lyndon Johnson, performing with and meeting Duke Ellington, Johnny Hodges, Paul Gonsalves, and other members of the band, Duke Ellington, Stan Getz. Ongoing into the 80s, we were no longer performing together. We still remained close friends. Our families were one, and we were one, brothers from different mothers. There was always the unspoken word of deep friendship, respect, and concern. Phil, I miss you, but I know you're together with Michael and warming up the great bandstand for us in eternity. In total love, friendship, and respect, signed, Justin DiCiocio. I got to take a moment here to mention something that I should have mentioned earlier. Phil and I was trying to add it up in my head. Him and I go back 72, 73 years. We were together, friends. He went his way, I went mine. We were always in contact. We both came back to Buffalo and renewed our friendship, best of friends for our entire lives, until just recently when we lost him. And I can't finish this without also mentioning the third member of our little Three Amigos group, who was a fine, great jazz trumpet player. His name was Richie Merlo. Every couple of weeks, I grew up as a trumpet player, and every couple of weeks, I loved the way Richie played. He used to come over to my house after breakfast, and we used to sit in my office, and we would play duets together, and I was thrilled to do that. He's a great player, just a wonderful winner, and the three of us shared a lot of wonderful moments together. We have a lot of fine musicians here in the audience. Eric Hubner. He is chair of the UB Music Department. Eric, can you come up and say a few words about this magnificent facility?
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much. It's a great honor to be here and to present this wonderful event. We're so happy to have such a terrific turnout, and it's been my great pleasure listening to these guys play. George and Sabu are colleagues of mine on the faculty here. George directs our jazz ensemble. And, you know, I didn't know Phil. I moved to Buffalo back in 2009 and do the classical things, a little bit of a different world sometimes, but I love jazz. And in the little bit of time that I've gotten to spend with Jerry and Michelle, and Don and Tony in discussing today's event, in the lead up to today's event, I've come to learn that Phil, one of the things that was so important to him was supporting the next generation of jazz musicians. He devoted his life, in fact, to that, and he has left quite a living legacy of musicians active today, here before you, and all around the country and indeed the world, who were inspired by his example. And so I just wanted to let this audience know that his legacy lives on here in the UB Music Department. And to thank those of you who have already donated and showed your support for the work that we do here at UB and for our jazz program. So thank you very much for that, and enjoy the rest of the performance.
Thank you, Eric. Now, we're going to present to you something truly unique and unusual. At one time or another, you've seen or heard what is called a one-man band. Well, here comes the ultimate definition. When Phil took his Florida band to the George Lilly Studios, they recorded 5 of the 6 songs on the Legacy CD. When they were done, all the musicians left. Phil went back into the studio alone by himself, dimmed the lights, sat down at the piano, and recorded another composition. When he was done, he picked up his sax and told the engineer to play back the piano track, and he accompanied himself on track 2. When that was done, he asked the engineer to play back the 2 tracks, and again, he played another track against himself on piano and tenor for track 3. Then, in California, bass drums and a string section was added to complete the piece. Now, what you're about to hear is Phil all alone, in deep thought, composing a pensive, emotional, dreamlike soliloquy as he carries on a musical conversation with himself. Listen closely. We call this Philly's Trilogy. appreciate it. Isn't that beautiful? It's on the CD. You know, I think it's been a great weekend for the DiRe family. The gang from Texas brought a big surprise to Buffalo when Madison and Reed announced their marriage yesterday. Congratulations, guys. Now, Phil and I both have 3 wonderful daughters, and right now I would like to present Phil's greatest composition of all, his favorite trio, Maria, Michelle, and Deanne. Ladies, come on up.
Hi. That was beautiful. On behalf of our mom, we would like to thank everybody for coming to celebrate our dad. His life, his legacy, his music. We would like to thank you all for coming. We'd like to thank the musicians, his lifelong friends, and thank you for being here. First and foremost, Don. Thank you. Thank you to Don for his vision and for putting this together. I don't think it would have turned out as it did. Thank you, Tony Zambito, for all of your contributions as well. I don't know. We miss him, and I think the only thing that would have made today any more special is if he was here celebrating with us.
Are they beautiful? I would like to have the entire DiRe family please stand so they can say hello and send their thanks to you. Come on, guys. The band now has another of Phil's compositions. Like the CD says, if you read the liner notes, and this is perfect, fill your glass of wine, sit back, turn up the volume, and enjoy. This is the perfect tune for that special listening occasion. It's a misty, melodic Dreamfest composition called Touch. to say a very special thanks for your kind and generous donations. We hope you truly enjoyed the Phil DiRe Legacy CD. Our heartfelt thanks to all of these wonderful, great musicians for making this musical tribute possible today. God bless. Thanks to the University of Buffalo, our musical director, George Caldwell, Phil Rehard for making Slee Hall available to us. I want to thank Jim Safe for DGI Video for his production assistance, to Mark Percy for doing a great job on the sound, Chris Jacobs, our expert projectionist. Special thanks to Tony Zambito of jazzbuffalo.org for many months of promotional assistance. Thank you, Tony. Thanks to Jack Zuff and Frank Priore for all their photo and support work that they did on the CD. And thanks to Lou Roberto for his support and donations from the Italian American Police Association of Western New York, that's Steve Lappa and his board of directors. Special thanks to Joe DeLeo of the Preniente Italian magazine, the folks at Centro Cultural Italiano di Buffalo, who were very helpful, and finally special thanks to my buddy, Michelle DiRe Peters and her crew for making this labor of love a joyous tribute. Thank you. And God bless all of you, and support jazz in Buffalo. George, take us home. Thank you. Thank you all. Enjoy the CD. God bless.